this meeting to order. And Eloise, I'll turn it over to you for roll call.
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Yeah.
District 2, Supervisor Phillips.
Josh Stratton on his behalf.
Alejo here.
District 3, Supervisor Lopez.
Priscilla Barba here on his behalf.
District 4, Supervisor Askew.
I'm here. Hello.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Here.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Yeah.
City of Delray Oaks.
Here.
City of Gonzales. City of Greenfield.
Here.
City of King City.
Present.
City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Present.
City of Pacific Grove.
Here.
City of Salinas.
Here.
City of Sand City.
Here.
City of Seaside.
Here.
City of Soledad. Chair, we do have a quorum of 3 absent.
Okay, thank you, Eloise. Appreciate that. Item 2 is public comments. We'll open it up. I don't know if there's any public members that have pinged us in or are calling in. Eloise, do we
I don't show anyone.
have any members of the public that have contacted us? Okay, great. If there's any, or don't reckon public comments, if there's any public here. Not hearing any, we'll move to the consent agenda. And I'll entertain any members that wish to poll or make comments on agenda items from the consent. Any members?
Mr. Chair, if I may, could we call the roll for the ex officios, Eloise?
Oh, I'm sorry. Eloise, can we do that?
Oh, yes, sorry.
And then I believe we have the pledge.
Yes. Ambag. Here. Caltrans District 5.
Present.
Monterey Bay Air Resources District.
Here.
Monterey Regional Airport District.
Here.
Monterey Salinas Transit. City of Watsonville. CSUMB.
Here.
Chair, we do have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, staff. And my apologies for overlooking the pledge. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm in a different office and it feels weird. So Eloise, if we could go to the pledge, I'm not sure who's going to put the flag up.
Okay.
Okay. Alejandro, may I ask you to lead us in the pledge, please? Alejandro Chavez.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation under God,
Indivisible.
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, it appears that board member Rios and obviously board member Chavez are here. They just missed the roll.
Okay, Eloise.
I apologize.
Welcome aboard. I appreciate you all being able to join us today. Mayor Rios, your sound appears to be working.
Yes, isn't it?
Awesome. Yes, we've got you. We've got you. Thank you very much for joining us. And let's go ahead and get started with the consent item. I believe we've covered number 2. Let's go to number 3. And we have some new board members that have joined us. Anyone wishing to pull an item from consent or make comments, now's the time to do so. Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion for consent approval.
I'll move approval of consent calendar.
Second.
Okay. Mary Adams first, and I believe that was Dave.
Correct.
Dave Potter was second. Thank you. Eloise?
Okay. District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Aye.
District 2, Supervisor Phillips.
Aye.
District 3, alternate Barba.
Aye.
District 4, Supervisor Askew.
And I just want to say thank you to item the wayfinding program regional funding agreement for the 920 directional wayfinding signs. I'm very excited about that. Thank you for making that happen. So aye.
Thank you, Wendy.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Del Rey Oaks.
Aye.
City of Gonzales.
Aye.
City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas.
Aye.
City of Sand City. City of Sand City. City of Seaside.
Aye.
City of Soledad.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes with the 16-0 vote.
Okay, and did we get a vote from Greg?
Aye.
No,
It was my mute was on. Sorry about that.
Okay, great.
thank you.
Thank you. We'll include you in that vote.
Yes.
Thank you all. We're going to move to agenda item number 4. Staff?
Yes, good morning, Chair, members of the board. Mike Zeller, I'm Principal Transportation Planner. I'll be presenting this item on new federal stimulus funding that the agency is expecting to receive. Just to start things off, there's 2 items on the agenda this morning that are dealing with federal transportation funding. The first one that I'll be presenting is on the Coronavirus Response and Relief Act of 2021. The next agenda item up will be the legislative update with Christina Watson discussing potential funding that we could receive through community funding, community project funding, formerly known as earmarks. So 2 exciting opportunities for new funding that we had not previously expected to receive. With the Coronavirus Response and Relief Act of 2021, this was a supplemental appropriations that California is set to receive just shy of $912 million for transportation funding. And the state is proposing to bifurcate these funds with 60% going to the state and then 40% to the regions. The 60% that the state would use, they would use that to backfill state funding, transportation funding programs that have seen declines due to the ongoing pandemic. So primarily the funds would be going to the State Highway Operations and Protections Program, as well as backfilling some of the state transportation improvement program. The 40% that is slated to go to the regions. I'll discuss there were some potential different funding distribution scenarios that the state was discussing. The California Transportation Committee is actually meeting this morning at 10 o'clock to approve one of those distribution methods that I'll go over on the next slide. But the funding that would be coming to our agency, it's primarily a very flexible source of funding, similar to the Regional Surface Transportation Program funds that we receive, that can be used on a variety of transportation sources. And the state also supports replacing local funds that are on existing projects in freeing those local funds up for other projects. There is a timeline to use these funds and they want to get them out expeditiously. So the state is in support of being able to shift funds around so that we can use these funds early and then move funds to other projects down the line. So what I have on the screen now is the 3 different funding scenarios that were discussed. I've highlighted the second one there in the middle. That is what the California Transportation Commission staff is recommending this morning that the commission approve. The way that second scenario would work is that 50% of the funds would flow through the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program. This was formerly the Regional Surface Transportation Program. In that case, about $2 million would come to Monterey County, to the Transportation Agency, through the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program. And then the other 50% of the funding would flow through the State Transportation Improvement Program. And we would receive 2.2 million through that program for a total of 4.2 million in new federal funds, which is great. What staff is seeking today is guidance just on the State Transportation Improvement Program funds and programming that to the State Route 156 Castroville Boulevard interchange project. As I mentioned a little bit later on the timeline slide, there is a short turnaround to get these funds programmed so that we can use them on that project. So that's the reason for bringing this item today, just on the State Transportation Improvement Program portion of the funds. And then staff would bring back a future item to discuss the $2 million under the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program when we have a set of policy recommendations to bring forward. So on the slide now is the current funding distribution or funding plan for the State Route 156 Castroville Boulevard project. You can see we have a few different funding sources on the project with existing State Transportation Improvement Program funds. We do have federal demonstration funds on the project, so the project is already federalized. So this would be a good candidate to receive additional federal funds. We also have local Measure X regional funds, as well as regional development impact fees, and then the $20 million in the Senate Bill 1 Trade Corridors funding grant that we just recently received. So with the 2.2 million that we are likely to receive through the State Transportation Improvement Program and new federal funds, staff would be looking to shift out either the Measure X or the regional fees and replace those with the new 2.2 million of federal funds. And then of course, leave a balance of either the Measure X or the regional fees to make sure that the funding project does stay whole. So in one case, we could reduce the Measure X amount down to $325,000 and add in 2.2 million of the federal funds. And so here we have the timeline. So as I mentioned, the CTC is considering approving that 50-50 split of funding going through the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program and the State Transportation Improvement Program. Their meeting starts at 10 o'clock this morning. So we'll likely know by lunchtime if that funding distribution was approved. And then as mentioned, there is a short turnaround to get these funds programmed. Funding amendments are due to Caltrans and to the commission by April 23rd of next month. And then the CTC would consider approval of our funding proposal at their June meeting. And then the funds, both the full set of funds, the 4.2 million that we received, has a funding availability of until September 30th, 2024. So the funds need to be expended by then. So there's some urgency in getting the funds onto a project that can use them quickly. So the requested action today, as I mentioned, is just to receive board authorization to program the State Transportation Improvement Program portion of the funds. That's the 2.2 million to the State Route 156 Castroville Boulevard project. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay,
I
great.
have a question for you.
I'm sorry, can't see who that is.
That's Greg Hawthorne. I have a
Okay,
question.
Mr. Hawthorne, go ahead.
So the Coronavirus Relief Act, you know, it's great that we're improving our roads and we're doing everything else. What are we doing to make it safer from corona and any other kind of virus that goes into our bus systems, like the MST system? Why don't we have some funding that's going so that we get clean air things that are going into our buses, so that when they're traveling around, that people get on them and they're not worried about catching something, a cold or corona or anything else? I mean, what we're doing is we're putting it back in the roads, which is great, and I understand that, but This is supposed to help our citizens to fight things like corona and coronavirus. And why aren't we thinking that we can make all our buses that are our mass transportation safer for all the people that are getting on them? Because that is the people that are low income, and they're forced to use the rapid transit, and yet that's obviously a petri dish right now for coronavirus or anything else. And if we took some of that money, and I know a company that can hook our buses up so that they're totally safe, just like the air outside. So I'm wondering why we don't have any kind of money going towards something like that out of this whole thing, except surface roads and everything else, which obviously we need. But I thought that's what this money was for, is trying to mitigate the problem of spreading the virus all over the place.
So let's turn to staff, and we also have the MST partners. I don't see them on the screen, but MST might be present with us.
I am here. I'm
Okay.
sorry I came in a
Thanks,
little bit
Carl.
late, but I'll
No
be able to
problem.
respond.
Carl,
Chair,
first
may I
let's-
respond first?
I'm sorry, Mike.
Yes, I do want to clear up a misconception. Mr. Hawthorne mentioned about buses being a petri dish. Let me assure you, they are cleaner than you would think. As of to date, there has not been, and please correct me, MST, there has not been one positive case that was from any of our buses. And if Carl, if I'm wrong, please correct me.
That is correct.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so what I want to do is recognize the two parts of the question. I think the second part was the safety of the buses. That's just been answered and confirmed with the director of MST. But Greg, I think the first part of your question was, are there any funds going also to MST? So funds are distributed from the state from part of the coronavirus relief. There may be money going to MST. Carl, do you know if you're receiving funds as well?
From state funds, only federal funds that are traveling through state programs like the 5311 program for rural transportation, 5310 program for disabled transportation services, bus equipment purchases only. But MST has received a fair share of funding from federal, 3 different federal coronavirus relief programs. And I would have to say that MST buses are not a petri dish. We have a very safe, clean environment on board MST buses. Air is exchanged every 2 minutes. 100% air exchange occurs every 2 minutes. We have installed very high intensity filtration on board the buses. Hand sanitizer stations are on board the buses. The buses are subject to fogging multiple times per day. We have social distancing impacted, 100% masking. I would say, we are maintaining more distance between our passengers on board a bus people who are traveling 15 minutes or so, or 20 minutes, versus those who are sitting elbow to elbow on an airplane for hours at a time. I would feel much more safer on an MST bus than in frankly, in any form of transportation, because frankly, a bus is safer than driving in your own personal vehicle. You're more likely to be in an accident and be put in a hospital and be put into an unsafe situation driving in your own car than in driving, being a passenger on an MST vehicle. So I do have to take exception to Mr. Hawthorne's comments on behalf of MST, our passengers and our employees who are working so hard to keep everybody safe. Thank you.
And MST
Okay,
drivers are being vaccinated too.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut down the MST. What I was suggesting is that we need to put some money into helping the MST. And my petri dish thing was just a comment. I didn't know that you had so many different things that were going on. So I apologize. I didn't mean to bring down the MST, but I was just surprised that I wanted to see if the money was going to help the MST so that they can keep going on and expand their safety and everything else. It was not a comment to, it came out wrong. I'm sorry about that, but it sounds like you have it totally under control and you have plenty of money. So I guess we can just keep it going the same direction that it was called for.
Okay.
I appreciate your support, Mr. Hawthorne. Thank you.
Thank you all. If I could encourage folks to use your hand raised, I've got about 3 screens of folks, so it's hard to keep track. I do want to acknowledge everybody that raises your hand, so please use your hand for getting called on. Appreciate that. Debbie, I see your hand raised.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify why transportation got funding in this bill, because it is different from the past bill. So this bill that we're talking about here is commonly referred to as CRISA. I did not memorize what the acronym stands for. COVID relief is what people are calling it. And it's actually designed to replace the loss of gas tax revenue that occurred during the pandemic months, because as you know, in different areas, the gas tax revenues has gone down from, let's say, from 30 to 50%. So that's why 60% of the money is going into the state, because the state programs are getting backfilled, and then the 40% is going into the locals to help backfill any losses that we may have had for gas tax. The proposed formula would give out of that 40% would give half of the money for I would say local projects, and that would flow through then our competitive formula to go to local projects, and that's where the real gas tax losses have occurred. And then it would also flow through the other half, the 2.2 million under discussion, to regional projects, which is what we're recommending to put it into the 156 project. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that project's ready to go, and so one of the key other purposes of this funding is to stimulate the economy, and so that project's going to be moving forward now. But they're also allowing you to backfill, and so this would backfill, first of all, any cost increases on the project, and second of all, if there isn't a cost increase, which I am just fearful of, then the money would go back into Measure X and then would go into another one of our priority projects, so our most flexible money. So that's why it's in the COVID bill, even though it does seem a little bit unusual. The other part I should note is that I certainly believe that MST, while they're, I'm sure they would not say they have all the money they need. They did get an additional set of transit money separately in the CRISA bill, if I'm not mistaken, and of course in the prior legislation. So that's why we were not proposing for it to go to transit, just because they got a separate allocation of funding.
Okay, great. Debbie, thank you very much for the clarification. I know this one is a little different, a little more rapid in the timeline. And so let's keep moving. Bill Sabo, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to kind of counter the comment by my good friend and fellow Detroiter, Carl. The airport is cleaned 3 times a day. The airlines are delaying their flights to clean that airplane out there. And as you can see on YouTube videos, you don't get on those airplanes without a mask. So there's a lot of measures being done in air travel. So, and it's hard to get to Dallas Fort Worth on a bus. Right? Thanks, Carl.
Thank you very much. So we'll acknowledge that both modes of travel are appropriate and desirable for bus or air. Just get there. Any other questions or comments?
Chair, Supervisor Askew has had her hand up for a while.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it yet. So
Director Smith, but I was just going to say, I think this is a good strategy to use money that has less restrictions so that we can free up some of our money that does have restrictions, so we can free up money to put it back into local projects. I love our MST. I think our public transportation systems are deserving, and I feel really good about the TAMC priority projects that will be able to move these dollars into local benefit. And along the lines of taking advantage of COVID changes that COVID has caused to our infrastructure, You know, I know that TAMC is making huge commitments in our safe streets, in our biking infrastructure, and in looking to reduce vehicle miles traveled through a number of different strategies. So I feel really good about this recommendation and just wanted to chime in, but the questions I had were answered, so we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Staff, are you seeing any other hands raised or questions? I'm
Not at this time.
I'm not seeing anything. At this point, let's go out to the public. If we have any public that's joined us, any members of the public wishing to make a comment on agenda item 4 or questions. I see Grant Leonard. You're coming in as a member of the public?
Yes, good morning, Chair and members of the board. Grant Leonard from Castroville, and just want to support staff's recommendation here. It's great to see the continued commitment to 156 projects, and certainly prioritizing the funding in the way that makes most sense is the logical thing to do here. And you know, we just look forward to this project moving forward and getting completed. So thank you to staff and to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Any other members of the public that are present or have called in for comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion for this recommendation. If any members of the board have want to chime in for the motion.
So moved.
And that's
Second.
And I'll second that.
Okay, someone else got in there before you. Who was second?
It was Supervisor Askew.
Okay, Supervisor Askew, second. Allison, or I'm sorry, Eloise? You want to take the roll call?
Yes, can I ask who made the first motion?
I did. Allison Kerr.
Allison Kerr.
Allison Kerr. Okay, thank you.
And it was second by Wendy Root Askew.
I got that. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Aye.
District 2, Supervisor Phillips.
Aye.
District 3, alternate Barba.
Aye.
District 4, Supervisor Askew. District 4, Supervisor Askew.
Aye.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Delray Oaks.
Aye.
City of Gonzales.
Aye.
City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas.
Aye.
City of Sand City.
Aye.
City of Seaside.
Aye.
City of Soledad.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And thank you, staff. I know this one is a heavy lift with a short time frame, so we appreciate your extra work on this one. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is next up. Debbie, who's going to make our presentation on agenda item 5?
That's me, Mr. Chair. Christina Watson, Principal Transportation Planner.
Good morning.
And speaking of actions with a very short turnaround timeline, we had to quickly add in an action to this item. I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint. Let's see. All right, is this visible to everyone?
Yep, we've got it.
Okay. All right, so today we're going to be presenting on state and federal legislative issues. As Mike noted, we've got different kinds of federal funding that we're talking about here today. So moving on from the Coronavirus Relief Act of 2021, we're looking ahead at the Transportation Appropriations and Transportation Authorization Bill today. But first, we're going to start with state legislative issues. And on the call with us today, we have Gus Curry, our consultant in Sacramento. Gus?
Thank you so much, Christina. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Gus Corey, Legislative Advocate, Corey Consulting. Pleasure to see you all and be with you this morning. So there's quite a bit that's going on in Sacramento. Just, quick context here. The policy committees are starting to meet. We reviewed about 2,400 bills that have been introduced so far. With respect to the state budget, in January, the governor was responding to the coronavirus pandemic. Last year's budget had a hole of $54.3 billion, but because of a record amount of capital gains that's come in, $17 billion, and the temporary suspension of some tax credits, there was some great strides made in addressing that deficit. And the governor's office actually just last week had issued a press release saying that for the month of February, that an additional $3.8 billion above projections have come into state coffers. So for this fiscal year, for 21-22, there's about a $14.8 billion surplus that was not anticipated. So notwithstanding any additional federal funding that we might receive, we should be in fairly decent shape, although there is a projected structural deficit going out in fiscal year 24-25 of about $7 billion. And so the state has been pretty prudent with its rainy day fund. But nevertheless, the general fund doesn't really have too much of an impact on transportation funding. That's because transportation is funded through the gas tax and vehicle registration fees. With respect to that, I think per the previous presentation, we're hoping that that fills the hole that we may experience with the reduction in the STIP amounts due to the reduction of gas tax consumption from the shelter-in-place order. So, with respect to the Central Coast Coalition had a legislative day on March 12th. I do want to thank you, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Alejo, and Mayor Labar for participating in that event. I hope that you found it to be productive. The focus of the meeting was in discussing issues of interest with the 7 Central Coast delegation members and the California State Transportation Agency. The real focus of our virtual meeting, it's the first time that we've done a virtual meeting, was to discuss the governor's climate action plan for transportation infrastructure. The acronym, also known as CAPTI, you might be hearing about that, wearing your other hats, has to do with the governor issued, you may recollect, in September of 2019, an executive order looking to utilize existing resources to address greenhouse gas emission reduction. And since the transportation sector makes up, traditionally it's been about 40%. Now we're hearing that it could be up to 50% of all greenhouse gas emissions. There's been a real push to try to get more multimodal options presented to the public and to try to get people to ditch their vehicles, especially gas combustion engine powered vehicles. And so while our county in particular has always been a staunch advocate and a leader in addressing air quality concerns, the concern that we have with this plan is that it is prioritizing investments into certain modes over others, such as rail, transit, active transportation, which we've all been very, very supportive of. But we need to address all modes. An example is, we got the Imgem Parkway, funded a couple years back. We just got a grant award for State Route 156 through Castroville. We have to be able to complete that corridor to address goods movement, tourism, commuters. And so we're looking for to partner with the state in seeking pragmatic solutions here through, how do we continue to meet the objective of addressing greenhouse gas emissions while still addressing mobility, especially for disadvantaged communities, farm workers, laborers, folks that can't take their tools on a bus or a train. and it could be greater investments into broadband, for example, more van pool service. So the broadband to encourage more telecommuting. So it's a fairly fluid conversation. The state through CalSTA is looking to adopt a plan, and there will most likely be budget trailer bill language that should be published to try to rewrite some of the SB1 programs, which again we apply for. And so we're working very closely to make sure that we continue to be able to have that flexibility to access funds to address the state highway system while concurrently investing into multi-modes for our constituents. And so there is a new California Transportation Commissioner. Just so folks are aware that the CTC has 11 commissioners, 9 of which are appointed by the governor, 1 by the Senate President Pro Tem, 1 by the Speaker. And so Governor Newsom has been busy appointing new folks. Former Commissioner Yvonne Burke, former LA County Supervisor, asked to step down. And so the governor filled her vacancy with Darnell Grisby, who was recently the executive director over at Transform. He worked for APTA, and it's nice to see a familiar face. Him and I actually served on staff together years ago for a legislator as well. And then Joe Tavaloni from Riverside, who is was reappointed. It's pretty amazing. He's 97 years old, and just in awe of his continued commitment to public service. And so that's a quick snapshot of kind of what's going on macro level with the state. And so we do have some legislative items for action for your consideration here, Mr. Chair. These have our recommendations that are consistent with what was suggested by the executive committee. And so I'll just run through these very quickly, and I'm happy to answer any questions on any of the bills that you may have, even the ones that don't have an action item. But number one, this is implementation of Vision Zero to recalibrate speed limits to enhance pedestrian safety. AB 117 looks to get some money from the Greenhouse Gas Emission Fund, about $10 million, to provide rebates for the purchase of electric bikes. The next two, AB 361 and 703. 361 would allow you to meet virtually in the circumstance where there's an emergency that's declared. 703 does not have that condition. We learned that there is a collective effort by other authors to work on a single vehicle, but we're recommending support on these, and we'll continue to monitor any manifestation of a compromise agreement. AB 745 would provide rebates to low-income folks in order to purchase zero-emission vehicles if their vehicle fails a smog check. SB 28, authored by our Senator Ana Caballero, would look to make it easier to deploy broadband access in rural communities. And so that helps with telecommuting opportunities for our constituents. SB 551, this would create more coordination between state and local jurisdictions for the deployment of zero emission infrastructure for charging stations and the like to build out the system. And SB 792, this would require, there was a court decision a couple years ago, which basically said that, sales tax needs to be collected at the point of origin. So this obviously has an impact on our Measure X expenditures, our revenues. And so being able to catalog that as this bill is proposing would be beneficial for that purpose. And so that's a quick summary of the support recommendations. And then we do have a couple that we're requesting an opposed position on. So SB 786, this would make the position of the executive director of the California Transportation Commission a gubernatorial appointment. We feel that this is excessive, given that, again, 9 out of the 11 commissioners are appointed by the governor. This one, I think, would unduly influence funding decisions that are made before the commission. The CTC has a pretty good track record of being an objective entity that looks at the merits of funding various infrastructure projects. And so if it's not broke, what are we trying to fix here? SB 542, this would remove the $100 zero emission, the vehicle registration fee on zero emission vehicles. This is critical because, prospectively, zero emission vehicles are going to comprise, the fleet of vehicles that are out there. And that vehicle registration fee is what funds a lot of the transportation funding. As I mentioned, the gas tax and vehicle reg fee are the two major components of what funds state transportation funding. So we don't want to see that funding source go away. I was told by the author that this might be just a spot bill, but nevertheless in print it's problematic. And so we can always come back and revise the position should the author change it accordingly. And then SB 771, this removes the sales tax on the purchase of zero emission vehicles that are $25,000 or less. I'm not aware of many ZEVs that are under 25,000. I appreciate what the author is trying to accomplish, but the bill takes away the local reimbursement by the state for any lost sales tax revenue. And that would clearly have implications on our Measure X revenues. And so we have an oppose unless amended position on this one, Mr. Chair. And so that's a summary of the legislation that's before you. And during the course of session, we'll continue to monitor bills as they're amended and applicable per our adopted 2021 state legislative platform. So I'll stop right there and I'll turn it over to Christina for the second part of the presentation on federal activities.
Thank you, Gus. And I do want to stop and pause and see if there are questions about state legislative activities before I move on to federal legislative activities.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. If you could have the slide goes back one where we're showing the support list of legislation, that'd be helpful. I'll start it off with a question on SB 792 under Glazer, sales and use tax. Does that include online sales?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's open it up to the board. I see Chaps Padori, you have a question.
Thank you, sir. Mine was also on SB 792. Is that applicable for all payment types? So say cash transactions, how do I plan to collect the zip code there?
I'll look at the bill for more specificity, but it's for any transaction that's over $1 million that's made. So they, the author's looking to have that reported. And I think, retailers kind of know, they're able to source where their transactions are being made by zip code.
Okay, thank you. Actually, a follow-up question, sorry. Seems like these are all fluid in nature, and I saw the the bill matrix. Is this frequently updated, and how frequent is it updated?
So I coordinate pretty diligently with TAMC staff, predominantly with Ms. Watson, and then with input by Director Hale and Deputy Director Muck as well. And so we refresh this every month. The legislative cycle, as you know, the calendar is not necessarily consistent with our board cycle. So things sometimes change on a dime, but we try always to bring something to you as soon as it's amended to telegraph things. And just so you know, my philosophy is more so on bills that are injurious to TAMC is we want to be able to act on those as swiftly as possible. To support ones, I feel like we typically have a little bit more time to see how those work out. But we provide this every single month during the legislative session through the governor's bill signing period, which in the first year of a 2-year session, that goes until the middle of October. And it's the end of September for the end of a 2-year session.
Appreciate the detail. Thanks.
Yeah, and also if I can add to that, Gus, for the cycle, each one of these is coming to your executive committee. So the executive committee is hearing in depth and sometimes much more dialogue in terms of the content of the bill. So these are recommendations that come from your executive board that then go to the full board for consideration. So at any time, if you have a question in terms of legislation that's coming, pending, or content of anything that we're recommending, staff is always a resource, as well as we can always seek clarification from your state legislative lobbyists. So I would make that invitation to any of the board members that want more information. I see Mary Adams, you have your hand raised.
Thank you.
Mary, you're still on mute. There you go. That's it.
Thank you. It's a question on AB 361, Robert Rivas, and also AB 703, Blanca Rubio, the two that deal with local agencies and teleconferences, et cetera. Will we give, and I know you indicated that we're trying to see if we can't merge them in some ways, or have it be a collaborative sort of effort. Will we be focusing primarily on AB 361 because that's Robert Rivas and he's one of our guys?
So Member Adams, I think what's unclear, and this is per Member Rivas, when we met with him on March 12th, he indicated that it was unclear who the ultimate author was going to be. And I think out of deference to him, because he is one of our delegation members, we did want to show support because it's something that the executive committee had expressed interest in supporting. And so there are other opportunities. And so I think because it's consistent with what's in our state legislative platform, we felt like whatever vehicle was going to matriculate through the process would be supported by you and the board. But I'm not quite sure at this point, and I'll definitely be sure once I see an amended vehicle to reference back to the executive committee for their consideration of support, whether it's Mr. Rivas's bill or another assembly member's bill or senator's bill for that matter.
Great. Thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Gus. And I think if I recall what Assembly Member Rivas indicated was that there were multiple bills that were submitted on the same topic. So I'm sure that there's much work that needs to come from that. But we did indicate to him that we do support his efforts on open meetings and local agency teleconferences, coming out with some new format for an amendment to the Brown Act. So he is aware of that. And there are other legislative actions coming, I'm sure, in the coming weeks. Debbie, I think you had a comment.
Just a quick comment that we're keeping a close eye on this whole teleconference legislation. First of all, because we want to have the flexibility to be able to do some sort of a hybrid or to have board members who are calling in from out of town be able to participate without having to post at their hotel room or at their residence. But there is a version of this bill that is much more onerous that would require hybrid meetings as opposed to just make them at the agency's choice, and also would require translation of all staff reports into multiple languages. It would result in us having 4 different versions, I believe, maybe 3 of our staff packages, and also to have a translator on site. And as you know, we don't get a huge amount of public comment, but when we know we're getting it, we always have a translator available. And so we're just trying to balance the notion of how do we get the best things out of the pandemic in the teleconference, the silver linings, and how do we make sure that it's not so onerous that all the cities and the counties and the special districts like TAMC are spending a lot of time on paperwork.
Right. Mr. Chair, if I may, the bill that Director Hale's referencing, it's AB 339, and we have it as a watch in our packet, for the reasons previously mentioned.
Yeah, good point. Thank you. I see Angela, you have your hand raised.
I do, thank you. I just wanted to, ask to also look into SB 735, Rubio. It talks about using camera systems around school zones to, help with speeding cars and things like that. Since we have the Safe Routes to School initiative through TAMC, I think that's something that we should be in support of as in this agency. So if we could also look into that, it's SB 735.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Gus, you got that noted?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay,
we'll be sure to
thank you.
put that on next month's matrix.
All right, good deal. Any other questions from our board? Okay, Christine, we'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Gus. All right, so moving on to the federal side of things, there are a couple of bills we'd like you to consider support actions on. One is our Congress member Panetta has authored the Electric Bicycle Incentive Kickstart for the Environment Act, which cleverly has the acronym of e-bike. And then the other is the Complete Streets Act of 2019 by Markey and Cohen. So both of these bills would support our stated efforts to improve our bicycle and pedestrian safety and complete streets in Monterey County. So we're asking for your support on those two pieces of legislation. And unless there are any questions on those, I will move forward to the next slide.
Okay, let's query the screens here. Any other questions from board members on federal? Seeing none, Christina, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So then this is what Mike referred to earlier in terms of the potential for federal funding for projects that the previously known as earmarks. They were banned back in 2010, 2011. They're being brought back this year and they're being renamed the community project funding. And there are a couple of different ways that community project funding is being proposed. One is through the appropriations bills, of which the federal government has 12 total, transportation, housing, and urban development being the one that we would get funding through potentially. And then the other potential opportunity would be through the authorization bill. So the current act expires this September 30th. And reauthorization of that act could be a 5 or 6 year bill, depending on how they're able to put together the funding for that bill. And then there's also, of course, the potential for an infrastructure bill that might be in addition to that. So I'm sort of lumping the concept of an infrastructure bill into the authorization level, because that would be a significantly larger amount of funding. So the appropriations funding limits, that is the only thing that they're really sure of at this point. The Congress member's office is telling us no more than $2 million for a project, community project funding through the Appropriations Act. As little as $500,000 through to $2 million for that. And then out in the future, it's much less certain, but Caltrans and the California State Transportation Authority held a call Monday morning, and their estimate was that it would be somewhere between $5 to $25 million for a project in that bill. Of course, those discussions haven't really initiated, but because we have to move really quickly to put our projects forward for the Congress members' consideration, we are addressing both of those today. Again, the Congress member only can propose 10 projects, community projects, across all 12 appropriations bills. So, and he represents Monterey County, Santa Cruz County, San Benito County. So this isn't the only request you will get. You will get many requests from many different entities for this funding. And we will be lucky if we get anything, but if we don't ask, we definitely won't get it. So we're proposing some actions here. And there are other sort of qualifications. The project needs to be in the State Transportation Improvement Program. It needs to already have matching money. And for the appropriations bill, it needs to be able to be delivered within 12 months after the bill is approved, which we're expecting to be sometime this fall. So within 12 months after that, we need to be able to what they call obligate the money to the project. So that's, again, for the appropriations bill. We think there will be a lot more flexibility for the authorization bill because it's a 5 or 6 year bill. So we don't think it'll have the same time constraints. Let's see. So this is the integrated funding plan, but only the projects that we think would qualify for this federal funding because they already have or will soon have National Environmental Policy Act clearance on them, which is the required environmental review. And because they're in a place where they're ready to move, and because they also are they're requiring a very strong show of community support for the project. So we need to show that we've done an immense amount of outreach, which we always do, but we can prove that with these projects, and that we have a lot of community support. So we have letters to the editor, we have support letters from community groups and from elected officials, that sort of thing. So we whittled down the integrated funding plan to these 4 projects for your consideration today. And the staff recommendation is highlighted with the green boxes. So what we're recommending for the near term, the appropriations bill that needs to be spent in fiscal year 2022 would be to support the environmental review of the US 101 south of Salinas Safety Improvement Project, the US 101 Safety Improvement South County Project. That already it is a Measure X project. All 4 of these are Measure X projects. So that helps us show community support because we did get 67% of the vote on Measure X. So that's a good, strong showing of community support right there. And then we also have STIP money that the state has dedicated to this project for the environmental review. So we can match that money because we think that that is probably an underestimate, a low number for the environmental review of that very significant project that would really help goods movement and commuter travel through US 101 between Salinas and Chular is where the project is, but it will help everyone traveling that corridor, especially the trucks with a lot of cross highway travel. So that's what we're proposing for the appropriations bill. For the longer term authorization bill, we're proposing the State Route 68 Safe and Traffic Flow project. It has a gap right now for construction of 30 million. So if we apply for 20 million, optimistically, we think we can match that with other state funding, whether it be Senate Bill 1 grant program, which this would be very, very well qualified for, or potentially STIP funding or some other source of state funding to match the community project funding. Trying to unlearn the word earmark in my brain. So that's staff's proposal. And this is sort of outlining it in a different way for people who like words over graphics. So the appropriations funding ask would be $2 million for the US 101 south of Salinas project development environmental review phase in year 21-22, also known as federal fiscal year 22, since state and federal years do not align. It's a little confusing. And then number 2 would be for the longer term authorization bill, $20 million optimistic ask for the State Route 68 construction in year 25-26. And so these are the requested actions for you today. Receive the update, adopt positions on both state and federal legislation. And then the other item that I didn't even create a slide for is to authorize staff to go out to bid for a federal advocate, because in the past, back in the golden days of earmarks prior to 2010, we had a federal advocate, and we stopped that back in, I think, 2013, 2014 timeframe because we didn't see the return of earmarks coming. So we don't currently have anyone working for us in DCs. So we're asking you to consider, and this was an action that all of these prior to item A down there were all recommended by the executive committee. So the executive committee received all of this information, discussed it thoroughly at their meeting this month, and recommended that the board authorize staff to go out to bid for a federal advocate. And item 3A is the new item that just came up, brand new, hot off the presses, and very urgent, because the requests to Caltrans for support letters are due today. And so recommending staff pick priority projects for community project funding. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. A lot there to digest quickly, so let's double back to the board and see if there were any questions they had on the third part of your presentation, particularly on the last part, which was staff's recommendation and the executive board's recommendation to go out to a bid for a federal advocate. So any comments from the board from what we've just heard from Christina? Chaps Fedori.
Yes, thank you. On that last part, authorize staff to go out to bid. It seems like the earmark funds or whatever that initiative is still in play, right? It's not confirmed. So why are we authorizing now, even before it's confirmed?
No, it is confirmed. Our Congress member is asking for us to give him project nominations right now. And Caltrans is asking us to request letters of support today for these community project funding. So it is very much confirmed. This is a long process though. So staff can do most of this, but in terms of, getting people's support in DC, that is a pretty big lift for somebody who lives in California. So it's very helpful. We've found it very helpful in the past, prior to 2010, to have a federal advocate on the ground there supporting us and talking to everybody that needs to be convinced that our projects are worthy. And that takes time. But right now, the ask is current. It's imminent.
Okay.
And if I may note, this authorizes us to go out for the request for qualifications. Christina, would we need to bring it back to the board then for approval of the contract as well?
For the approval of the contract, definitely would come back to the board. Yes.
Yeah. So if for some reason earmarks do not happen within that time frame, then we have the flexibility to not hire someone.
Yeah, and also most contracts would be written in such a way that if the demand fell off next year, the contract may have some elements where there were some clauses for pause or a cancellation. So the service agreement would, I'm envisioning, would have something in there that would protect TAMC from wasting funds. If there was no purpose of having a federal advocate, we could draw back. Any other board members with questions? Wendy, I see your hand up.
Hi, thanks, Ed. So I definitely support the going out for a federal advocate. I would just want, how quickly do we think we can have someone ready to go working with us? And do you have any thoughts about who we could get to sort of supplement in the meantime? I know that there are other groups locally that have federal lobbyists. The county has one. I'm not sure if we would be able to piggyback in the short term until we've got someone lined up for TAMC, but I definitely support request for a federal advocate, and just how quickly can we have it ready to go, and what do we do in the meantime?
Yes, thank you. As you're right, going out to bid does take time. It depends on whether or not we get a lot of responses and how quickly we can turn that around into a contract. Could be a couple of months. In the meantime, though, the county has been very generous. We've been talking with Brent Heberly, the county's federal advocate. We had a meeting last week to talk to him about that. And, because you cover so many other topics, not just transportation, they're looking at the whole range of all the 12 appropriations bill. We're fortunately just looking at just one. So we think that Brent could help us in a limited capacity. But again, I think it would behoove us to have our own advocate in the long term.
And also, Wendy, I want to address part of your question there too. It did come up in a conversation I had with Debbie, and her authorization for expenditure is $50,000 before board approval is required. So she could go out and go with a temporary short term, and then the board would receive a recommendation for a longer term through an RFQ or an RFP. And so we could get moving fairly quick if we found the right partner and was willing to accept us as a client. So we're thinking that this could move fairly rapidly. In long term, the full board would see the proposal for the long-term partnership. Mary.
Thank you very much. I as well am very supportive of the update on the legislative activities, adopting the positions, and definitely going out for bid for a federal advocate. I just had one question. Can you remind me on the prioritization of the TAMC projects that we would be focused on? Just, I cannot remember why we decided not to put forward State Route 156, the Castroville Boulevard project.
Well, that is the project that we're recommending for the COVID relief funding. And it is, as you see here, fully funded today. Even so, what Mike was referring to was being able to move around the more flexible local funding in order to put the COVID money that is a very short timeline on it and needs to be spent as soon as possible, because this project is ready to go into construction this year. That's where the COVID money is going. And then the Measure X money will be able to move around to other, or the developer fee money might be able to move around to other projects that are on this list as well.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, we did think about it though. That's why it's on the list.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions from board. Staff, help me out here. What we're going to do is look at this as 3 parts. So 1, we have received our update on legislative activities. Check. 2, we need to adopt the positions of the proposed legislation. So I'll entertain a motion. Let's do this separately. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the recommendations.
LeVar, motion to approve and adopt and authorize.
Okay.
Allison Kerr, second.
Okay. Eloise, so you got that?
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a roll call on the adopt and oppose legislation piece, please.
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Aye.
District 2, Supervisor Phillips. District 2, Supervisor Phillips. District 3, Alternate Barba.
Aye.
District 4, Supervisor Askew.
Aye.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Delray Oaks.
Aye.
City of Gonzales. City of Gonzales. City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas.
Aye.
City of Sand City.
Aye.
City of Seaside.
Aye.
City of Soledad.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes with the 15-0 vote.
Okay, thank you very much. And item 3, authorize staff to publish a request for qualifications. That would be the next motion. I'll entertain a motion for that.
I so move.
Second.
Mary, thank you. Greg, thank you. Eloise?
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Aye.
District 2, Supervisor Phillips. District 3, Alternate Barba.
Aye.
District 4, Supervisor Askew. District 4, Supervisor Askew.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Delray Oaks.
Aye.
City of Gonzales. City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas.
Aye.
City of Sand City.
Aye.
City of Seaside,
Aye.
City of Soledad.
Aye.
Chair, motion passes 15-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Some pretty heavy business there and timelines are short, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I actually do need some direction about the priority projects if you're supporting the staff recommendation.
Okay, yes. So did we, can we do that with a consensus? So the-
Is TAMC council on the line?
Aye. Yes.
Do we need a separate motion for that?
Move approval.
Hold on 1 second.
Oglesby second.
Okay, hang on. Let's hear from our attorney.
Hang on 1 second.
Okay, I asked the question from the attorney. Can we move that with consensus or do we have to do a vote?
I think you should do it as a vote.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Eloise, why don't you go ahead and take the roll for us?
Okay. District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Aye.
District 2, Supervisor Phillips. District 3, Alternate Barba.
Aye.
District 4, Supervisor Askew.
Aye.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Del Rey Oaks.
Aye.
City of Gonzales. City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas.
Aye.
City of Sand City.
Aye.
City of Seaside.
Aye.
City of Soledad.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes 15-0.
Okay, thank you. My apologies to the
you.
board for so much action and business, but lots of money to make sure we're doing it correctly. Thank you for your forbearance. Item 6, receive reports from transportation providers. I think we have Caltrans Director up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Scott Eads here again for Tim Gubbins. I'm the Deputy District Director for Transportation Planning. And we're looking forward to receiving the information from staff so we can pass that on today for those recommendations that you just passed in terms of the letter of support from CalSTA and Caltrans. So the first item I wanted to highlight is that the California Transportation Plan 2050 has been released. It was released on March 2nd. And the plan is really the long-term vision for the state. It's not a constrained plan like you're used to with the regional transportation plan, but it's providing a roadmap for mobility statewide with many goals, but one of which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Just to clarify, it does not include individual projects or budgets. Instead, it examines a wide range of policies and strategies such as expanding economic opportunities, creating low carbon transportation system, advancing transportation equity, and improving livability, safety and security enhancements, healthy lifestyles through walking and bicycling, and then facilitating travel behavior changes. And it even touches on sustainable growth and affordable housing. So I'll leave it at that. It's online. I encourage you to look at it. Just Google California Transportation Plan is probably the easiest way to get to it. It's posted on the Caltrans headquarters website. Then the second thing I wanted to touch on is the Highway 1 at Rat Creek, just a status update there. We have been working steadily 7 days a week throughout the daylight hours, moving out the material that slid down on the roadway. And what was left of the roadway created a dam. So we've moved an estimated 70,000 cubic yards of trees and rocks and debris that flowed down onto the highway. And then we're working now that all of that is removed, we're working to put in an estimated 25,000 cubic yards of fill that will support the new roadway, and there'll be a new culvert in there that's larger. We anticipate that this should last for all of our lifetimes and beyond. And so we're making sure that it's an improvement that will last. It was an extraordinary event with the fire preceding it. And we're still on track to reopen the highway by early summer of this year. That concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions for board members of Caltrans? Okay, I don't see any questions.
No questions, but just a real thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate all of the effort you guys have put into this. It's, I just had to say that. Thank you so much. And thanks for the great update again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Yeah, Scott, I wanted to echo that it means a lot, obviously, for the entire county, especially the peninsula, and especially hospitality with summer coming. The fact to know that there is a short timeline and we'll have the southbound, outbound to connect to Southern California is very, very important for our economic recovery. So thank you very much for all your efforts.
A pleasure.
Okay, next we're going to call on Monterey Peninsula Airport. Bill, we want to fly and we want to take the bus, but give us some news about the airport.
Well, unfortunately, we only offer airplanes, but Carl is right there with a bus in case you need it. We had a reasonable February in our traffic. We operated 385 flights, and the good news is we only had less than 4% cancellations, and that was due primarily to the poor weather in Texas and in Arizona. So the flights out of Monterey are performing well with our current carriers. We're offering three flights a day for connections through Phoenix, and 2 flights a day from American for connections through Dallas. In addition to that, we're still doing Las Vegas, and we're doing Seattle once a day. That's our new flight, and we got Los Angeles and Denver from United. And in May, we're going to be starting a Portland service with Allegiant, and also in June we're going to be starting service to Orange County and Ontario with JSX, which is kind of a semi corporate jet operation, but it's a walk-up service which you can buy a ticket on, and so we're kind of excited about that. We have a substantial amount of COVID testing that we're planning on doing, testing out in the parking lot in conjunction with MCHA and the chamber, and so we'll be providing that as a public service to the community. And we have a firm commitment from the FAA to fund up to $80 million towards our safety enhancement project, which includes taxiways and substantial improvements around the airport. And but in another $58 million in funding for a new terminal, which we're examining our options for financing that right now. We have, I just wanted to let everybody know that Woody's restaurant, the former Golden Tee, is up and running with Chef Tom Wood there, and they have an excellent menu and excellent. It's a really good eating experience at the airport for those of you who used to use the Golden Tee or are looking for an option out there. Tim Wood used to be over in Carmel Valley Ranch, and now he's at the airport, and we're pretty excited about that. And since there was so much discussion about sustainable activities, we are now, one of our fixed base operators is now going to be offering sustainable aviation fuel, and that replaces the fuel that would normally go for jet engines and diesel powered ground equipment. Now that's going to be a gradual phase in, but it reduces, has potential to reduce 80% of carbon emissions over time. So I know that's of concern to a lot of people about jet airplane emissions, and we're making moves in that direction. So as always, use Monterey, and I don't want to have to compete against the bus and San Jose Airport. So use the fly Monterey. Thanks a lot, Mr. Chairman.
I had a question for you. Now that everybody's going to be getting the COVID vaccine, are we going to be required, or is the airport going to ask us to show that we've been vaccinated, or does that give you any additional privileges that you don't need to be tested if you've been vaccinated, or how is that going to work?
I haven't been informed. That's a good question. We don't have any intention to require any kind of proof of vaccination or anything like that. Now, that doesn't say that either the airlines or the TSA might start to require that in the future, but I substantially doubt that. We have no power, nor do we have an interest in really screening passengers for their entrance into what we call the air side of the airport, but we do encourage and require that people have masks around the airport, and that's kind of the extent of where we're going right now. Things could change as we proceed further.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to turn to Carl. I think you're next up.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Yeah, as it's difficult to take a bus from an MST bus from Monterey to Dallas. It's equally difficult to take an airplane from Soledad to Marina. But thank you, my friend and fellow Detroiter, Mr. Sabo. Just wanted to also point out that MST drivers, through the help of our County Board of Supervisors, specifically Supervisor Relay, who was on our board, and also Supervisor Askew, who actually personally reached out to me as well. I want to thank them for their efforts. We were one of 5 counties that were able to get our bus drivers eligible to be vaccinated ahead of a statewide order that came out on the 15th that allowed all MST employees to be vaccinated. And during that first week, through our partners in the ag industry, who set up some pop-up vaccination clinics that invited MST employees to, as well as the city of Monterey, who brought their fire department out to our Monterey division, and also invited some pop-ups for MST, invited MST to that. We've had about 1/3 of our employees vaccinated within the first week. So at least getting their first dose, including myself. So we're really happy to be finally included in that and moving forward. We're also offering to MST passengers who come to our customer service locations in Monterey, Marina, or Salinas and show proof of vaccination. Will provide for each shot a $10 value day pass to offset their cost of vaccination travel, mobility costs. And we are also working together with anyone who asks if there are mass vaccination events, or as Mr. Sabo indicated, mass testing locations. If your community or groups want us to help provide transportation for those who have mobility limitations, please reach out and we will work together with you. If we ask for like 3 days notice so we can secure the drivers and equipment to perform that. But we have provided transportation for elderly and disabled folks in Gonzales to get down to Beam Memorial, some folks in Greenfield, as well as Greenfield and Soledad. We've worked together with the Soledad Health Clinic as well, helping them with their vaccination efforts. So we stand ready to help with transportation to these events as they occur. Finally, with regard to our SURF bus rapid transit, that is open for CEQA comments period is now open, and you can find out more information on our website at www.mst.org. Encourage everyone to get their comments in as well. That concludes my report. And thank you all for your support. With regard to the earlier conversation, I came in a little bit late and I heard a comment that maybe I was hit a nerve for me, and I apologize if I was too strident in defense of MST's cleanliness efforts. I do appreciate any support we can get in the community. And to confirm what Debbie said, in all 3 rounds of CARES, CARISA, and now the American Recovery Plan, MST has been receiving a good share of federal funds. So thank you all for your interest in that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we're going to go to the Monterey Bay Air Resources. Stedman, Mr. Stedman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. Good morning. I'll be pretty quick here. Last week, the MBARD board approved our proposed funding for AB 2766 program. That's going to be approximately $1.7 million will be allocated to that program. This program is funded by the $4 per vehicle registration fee that's collected by the Department of Motor Vehicles. And this program is divided into 2 components: clean air management and clean vehicles. The clean air management program typically funds projects like roundabout design and construction, adaptive traffic signal controls, and advanced clean transportation, which includes funding for fleet replacement at public agencies. And this year, new to the program, will be reaching out to private fleets with some funding opportunities for those operating fleets in our area, so typically small businesses. The Clean Vehicle Program includes our EV incentive program, which provides funding for the purchase or lease of battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, and electric motorcycles. Namely, we have a zero motorcycles, which operates in Santa Cruz. And we've had a number of police departments that have purchased or used these vehicles, and they're very, very happy with them. This year, we'll be increasing the funding available for the EV incentive program. And that's in part due to the response we had this year, where we depleted our funds in record time. In about 6 months, we got through about a year's worth of funding. So we're increasing it from 400 to 500,000. And then also, as a pilot program, we'll be adding an incentive of $150 for the purchase of an electric bicycle. So this is something we'll do as a pilot program, but we hope to develop some data on this, and we hope to get people out of their car onto electric bikes where possible to reduce emissions. So that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much for all of the comments from our partners with Transportation Authority. Item number 7, reports from any board members at the Transportation Agency or on the Transportation Agency expense for travel. I don't think we've had any, but just want to acknowledge that any items need to be mentioned for travel or expenditures. Hearing none. Debbie, we'll move to you for Executive Director's report, and I appreciate everybody being here. We're going to try and move this along rapidly, but we do have closed sessions, so please stay with us. Debbie, we're all ears for you.
Okay, real quick, those of you that were on a little bit early got to meet Doug Bilsey. He's our new transportation engineer, and he's also a traffic engineer. He comes to us from the city of Camarillo by way of Carlsbad, and in prior life from TAMC, actually, before we became independent from the county. So I just wanted to give you all a chance to meet Doug and say hello to him. He'll be working with your cities on traffic engineering issues, promoting complete streets and school safety. He'll also be managing our Caltrans projects. And so he's busy learning all the details of those projects and meeting your public works directors and your engineers. So help me by welcoming Doug Bilsey. Doug, go ahead and wave to the group.
Welcome aboard, Doug.
Also wanted to let you know that I think you all got the email that we are recruiting for a transportation planner to replace the vacancy left by Stefania Castillo. And so we're hopeful that if we recruit at a sort of folks getting out of planning school level, that we'll get a lot of good applications. But if you know of somebody, please feel free to forward the application. And it's on our TAMC website, tamcmonterey.org, if you don't have it. I also wanted to mention that fingers are crossed now for several reasons, but the big one is that the $12 million active transportation program grant for Upper Broadway in the city of Seaside is going to be voted on at the Transportation Commission today. Mike might know whether they approved that list yet or not. But we're really excited about this project because it just tremendously illustrates how you can improve safety and encourage bicycling and walking and transform your economic downtown, which is what Lower Broadway has done. And so we look at it as a model for other improvements throughout the county, and we hope the state will put more money into the program so that we can get more awards around the county. So fingers crossed. We will be sure to send out a news release. Those of you in Seaside, Mayor Oglesby and Supervisor Askew, be ready to get some quotes if you haven't already been contacted by Teresa for a news release. And then finally, the necessity for public transparency. Form 700s are due to Maria Montiel in our office by April 1st. Because of the FPPC's somewhat bureaucratic electronic signature requirement, we are apparently supposed to get certified as an agency before we can accept electronically signed documents. So if you could hand sign them, find a printer, beg, borrow, steal a printer from your neighbor, print it out, sign the document, send it into TAMC 55B Plaza Circle 93901 Salinas. We are working on trying to get certified, but and we'll let you know if we do. But apparently we can't just say we're using DocuSign. So that is my executive director report. I'd be happy to take questions.
Okay. I don't see any questions. Oh, Mike, Mayor Mike.
Just quickly, so on the Form 700s, generally we get an email to all of us. Can we get individual emails making sure that what is necessary? I did do electronic, but I want to make sure all my documents other than that are accepted. Thank you.
Okay, we'll reach out to anybody who requests it.
Okay, question, Wendy Root, ask you.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. I just want to say to the city of Seaside, Mayor Oglesby got his hand up, to TAMC, to the County of Monterey, to the school district. That Upper Broadway project is it was because of so many people working so hard to hold a vision, to do the legwork, to get the grant in. I just want to say thank you to the TAMC team who worked so hard to make that happen. And I do, I was going to say to Mayor Oglesby as well, but I think that just making an announcement at the school district, one of the next school district meetings, it's a big deal for the kids in Seaside, and that's going to benefit significantly. There's so many schools right in that area. And so that initial work to get the Safe Routes to School program and design work done, I think was, there's just all these pieces that came together, and just a big, huge, tremendous thank you. We're really excited.
Thank you, Wendy. Mayor Oglesby.
Thank you, Chair. And I also want to piggyback off what the Supervisor Eskew said about the gratitude Seaside has for the TAMC board and the focus on getting these grants through all of our agencies and cities, and especially Debbie and her leadership, putting a team together and making sure the state came down here and reviewed our proposal on the ground. And we appreciate her for that. And also, before I forget, Debbie, Teresa did contact us, and she's doing a wonderful job, and I think we're ready. There's not a finger cross reaction on this Zoom, but that's why I raised my hand to do that. And I'll just end by saying that it will help to transform our downtown area, making it a safer route for our seniors and children going to school. And I agree with Debbie about, we will continue to work forward as a regional body to make sure all our cities receive these type of fundings to transform their cities. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Debbie, we're all yours.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Ariana Green for her extraordinary work assisting the city of Seaside in putting forward this application. So thank you so much, Ariana, for all your hard work. Our grants team has really gotten very diligent, but that doesn't mean it's still not a lot of work. So thank you, Ariana. I also want to thank Maura Toomey from AMBAG, who has been the catalyst for making sure that our projects get an in-person tour from CTC staff. And this was one of the projects, so you're absolutely correct, Mayor Oglesby. So thank you, Maura, for your support and your personal connections with the CTC.
Great, thank you. Hey, I don't want to pass up Madeline Jacobson. I saw your hand up there. Do you still have a comment or question?
No, sorry, I was just clapping for Ariana.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great, thank you. With that, I think those are all good pieces to hear. We look forward to hearing the news on the vote today, and good luck and good thoughts to the city of Seaside. It's very important. Number 9, we're at announcements or comments from transportation board members. Any matters of future agenda items or comments? Mayor Mike Labar.
Thank you, Chair. First, quickly, I want to thank Ariana Green, Laura Cohen, and Maria Montel. At the beginning of this month, they were able to provide me with 38 play to learn kits that I was able to hand out to the kids that I read at San Lucas School. I'm hoping they got you some pictures, Ariana. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see the kids open them up because the teachers wanted to do that at the end of the day. And I think we all know why. It would have been too distracting. I also participated in the CalCog Regional Leadership Forum. It was a good forum. It was all online. The keynote speaker was Anthony Fox, the 17th U.S. Secretary of Transportation, and who's now a policy officer at Lyft. A lot of the conversation focused on resilience, preparedness, and equity, and the benefits of working together regionally, and then those regional goals coordinating with the state. The two things that I did take away is, one is the importance of the local input that would have in that process, that it should not be a top-down, it should be a bottom-up approach, starting here locally. And the conflict I did find was, while they're talking about equity and resilience, at the same time, they continue the conversation of vehicle miles traveled taxing, which is unequitable for many of our residents. So that conflict, that needs to be resolved. But all in all, a good program that was put together. And it was great to see you there too, Debbie. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mayor. All right, I'm seeing no other comments at this point. Excuse me. At this point, we're going to move to closed session. So Debbie, we have a staff member that's going to grab the board members and place us there. Is that correct?
That's right. Mike Zeller will take care of transferring. So when he offers you the invitation, say yes.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to close the regular meeting. Thank you all for participating. And for those of you that are board members, please stand by. For those that are not, we'll see you at the next meeting, and we appreciate your participation. Let's move to thank you. Catherine, I'm going to call on you to, where are you at? Catherine, if you'll make the announcement from closed session, please.
Of course. We have now ended closed session and have reconvened in open session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957B1. The TAMC Board of Directors met in closed session regarding employment of a public employee, and the board provided direction to TAMC staff. No other reportable action was taken. This ends my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Having no other items on the agenda, unless there's any other business we need to cover, this meeting will be adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.